David Tennant has just returned to Doctor Who for the 60th anniversary specials, but will we be seeing him on the show again anytime soon? The way things were left at the end of the third special, The Giggle, would seem to suggest so. But if a recent interview with Tennant is anything to go by, his time on the show might be over. So last week, David Tennant was hosting the BAFTAs, hence why he was kind of on the press circuit again, doing interviews and stuff and appearing in TV guides, on social media, websites and things. This is one of the things that came out of that kind of big publicity push, basically. He was on the cover of the Radio Times, there was an interview with him inside in the print edition, and some of it was published online as well, and of course, Doctor Who came up, because this is just like a couple of months on from the 60th specials, where we saw obviously this bigeneration take place rather than a straight up regeneration where the Doctor, turns into another incarnation. This time the character split in two. We've got two Doctors now on the go, kind of running in tandem with one another, the 14th and 15th. The 15th obviously being the main Doctor at the moment, but the 14th also just being there. We've kind of left him there in the background on Earth with the Nobles, living his life, still very much sort of in the picture. So it's a very unique kind of way of doing it, a very unique sort of situation we're in at the moment, where it's not like the previous Doctor has literally gone forever. They could theoretically come back. They're there on Earth, there's no reason why the 14th Doctor couldn't come back into the fray at some point. There was speculation at the time that perhaps that was what the intention was from Russell T Davies and the other creatives behind the show at the moment, to leave this Doctor in a place where he could return, if they wanted to bring him back, and where it'd be easier to bring back him or indeed other Doctors if the opportunity presented itself, or if they just wanted to bring back the Doctors because, the Doctors themselves wanted to come back and just, for the hell of it. So that was kind of the thinking from fans at the time. Now Tennant has been asked about it up front, are you coming back in the future or not? And this is what he had to say. The door is not any more open than it ever was, because in Doctor Who, if you want to bring someone back, there are endless ways of doing it. It's very much the end of the story. That does seem like a very weird way of putting it. Maybe he is just being, coy here and sly. Maybe he's trying to hide the fact that he is returning at some point. And, it's meant to be a secret, obviously. But yeah, the door is not any more open than it ever was. It literally is. That's kind of the whole point of bigeneration. Yes, okay, in the past, the show hasn't let the rules get in the way of bringing back past Doctors. They've found workarounds in the past, to do multi-Doctor stories, to bring back past actors, past incarnations. They've always kind of found some loophole, and I suppose in that regard, things are no different. But bigeneration was kind of literally put in place as a mechanism to make it easier for past Doctors to return, so not entirely sure I buy that reasoning. And as for it not being the end of the story, I mean, sure, okay, maybe we won't see the 14th Doctor again on TV, it's perfectly possible, but you can bet there'll be books, audio dramas from Big Finish, comics, anything is possible here, whatever you like. I'm sure even, these things are already in development, probably. People are already probably writing, short story collections, based around the 14th Doctor, post The Giggle, and what he gets up to. That stuff is absolutely in development. I have no doubt about that. So, yes, it's not the end of the story. We will be seeing more of this Doctor in some form, I'm sure. Whether that involved David Tennant actually doing a performance, either on TV or audio, that remains to be seen. But yeah, I'm sure at some point Big Finish will get their hands on this. He was also asked that logistical question that, of course, has already come up, from fans and everything. What happens if there is an Earth invasion, going forward in season 1 or beyond? And the 15th Doctor is obviously there, fanning the flames and sorting out the problem with Ruby or whatever. But what about the 14th Doctor, who is also there on Earth, contemporaneously? Does he just sit in the garden and have a cup of tea and read a paper and do nothing and just say oh, it's okay, my other self is sorting this one out? And in response to that, this is what Tennant had to say. You could also say, why has Patrick Troughton not landed here? It unpicks if you think about that too much. I'm retired. The 14th Doctor is retired. So again, with that, that is fair up to a point. You could always say, for instance, why does the first Doctor never bump into the 13th? Or, things like that. Or I don't know, like when the Ninth Doctor goes to 2012 in Dalek, why does he not bump into the 11th Doctor and Amy and Rory and that kind of thing? And obviously, the real world reason is that those characters didn't exist at the time that those stories were being written and filmed and stuff. Or like with spin-offs as well, like for instance, why does the Doctor not show up in the Sarah Jane Adventures, most of the time, or in Torchwood and that kind of thing, It doesn't always make sense why the Doctor doesn't always show up, or why certain Doctors are more likely to show up in certain time periods than other ones, like why does the first Doctor always land like in the 60s? Why does the 10th Doctor always land like in the mid to late 2000s? These things are obviously dictated by production reasons, and therefore we can't sort of criticise the logic of that too much. I think with this though it is slightly different again because the 14th Doctor has literally been left on Earth, he's still around and okay, maybe something like the odd TARDIS trip to the Gilded Age or whatever, or off to Mars, but for the most part, he is living his day-to-day life on Earth, so of course he's going to keep abreast of what's going on, like with Earth invasions and stuff. He's going to keep his finger on the pulse there, and yes, okay, he's retired, and so he's maybe going to say, well, okay, that's not my responsibility, I'm not going to get involved there, I am literally going to leave it to my other self, my future self, to sort that problem out. And of course, there is a real-world reason as well with this, that we don't want the old Doctor, the most recent Doctor, the David Tennant Doctor in particular, to overshadow our brand new Doctor in Ncuti Gatwa, the 15th Doctor. This is very much now his time, his era. He should be there doing all this main stuff, on the front line, fighting these Earth invasions and what have you. So from that point of view, it certainly makes sense to not have the 14th Doctor, either there alongside him or instead of him in some kind of spin-off show. In terms of my own thoughts on this, it is a weird one because with the bi-generation thing and the story that the 60th specials were telling, the giggle is an end to the 14th Doctor and David Tennant's Doctor Who time in some ways. It's kind of the ending that he always deserved as the 10th Doctor, and now he's finally got it. He's finally there with his family, with a home, on Earth, living his retired life. On the one hand, that is an ending, but it also does seem like a springboard for something new, potentially, and too kind of irresistible an opportunity to not do something with, in terms of the David Tennant Doctor Who. It seems like a very deliberate sort of way of leaving the door open to bring him back. Maybe they have plans to do that very soon. Maybe they've just planted the seed for the distant future, for years to come, maybe even for future showrunners and writers and production teams to bring David Tennant back for the next big anniversary. It has recently been rumoured that Tennant recorded some scenes for the finale for Ncuti Gatwa's first season, Season 1, and with that, yeah, okay, it could work. I'm kind of open to the idea, to be honest. It could be quite a nice way to kind of bookend Ncuti Gatwa's first run of episodes, because obviously Tennant was there at his beginning, so having him there again would kind of bring things full circle. But then also, we have seen an awful lot of David Tennant as Doctor Who, both at the time, years ago, and then recently as well, over the past year or so. His face was everywhere once again. And even when he hasn't been playing the Doctor on TV, he's still been very, very much present in, spin-off media, audios, comics, books, what have you, there, alongside the 13th Doctor. So I'm not sure the world necessarily needs more of David Tennant as Doctor Who. We've kind of had quite a lot of that already. But then, seeing him back recently, it does remind you of how good a Doctor he is and how good an actor he is and how lucky we were to have him and to hopefully still have him in some form, maybe, I don't know. So it's it's one of those weird things where I don't think we need a spin-off or we need to see him again. But if we did, I sort of wouldn't really be complaining. It's a bit of a funny one. Whatever the case, if Tennant himself is to be believed, then we're not going to be seeing any more of him in Doctor Who anytime soon. But what are your thoughts on this? Firstly, do you believe him? Is he telling the truth? Is he telling a white lie? And would you like to see more of the 14th Doctor, the 10th Doctor, whatever it may be? Or do you think this should be the end of his story, either for the foreseeable future or just full stop? Whatever your thoughts, I would love to hear them down in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this video, please do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new for more stuff like this in the future. But otherwise, until the next one, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye for now.